Now, before I go to the next story, I got to ask a question to the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you are and please do not Google this. Do not Google this. Do not cheat. Put a 1 in the chat if you know who Erik Cantu is. Put a 2 in the chat if you do not know who Erik Cantu is. And like I said, do not Google that name. Just put a 1 or a 2. 1 if you do, 1 if you don't. Okay, hack sign 2. Ace 2, 2, 2, Shamar Davis 1. I'm getting a lot of 2s, and you know what? I'm not surprised that y'all is a lot of 2s in this chat, and is only a couple, and literally right now, a couple of 1s. Okay. For those of you who don't know who Erik Cantu is, I'm very sure you're familiar with his story. So with that being said, let me go ahead and play this.
One police account called it a catastrophic mistake. An officer firing into a moving vehicle, critically injuring a teenager. As that 17-year-old Erik Cantu fights for his life, new developments. Our Dylan Collier tracking down new information on the criminal case against his shooter. But first, a warning. This story includes graphic footage that may not be suitable for everyone.
This evening, our first look at footage of James Brennan leaving jail early Wednesday. The fired San Antonio police officer was magistrated alone in his cell and kept away from other inmates, standard for high-profile cases. The 27-year-old walked out free on $200,000 bond at 4:06 a.m. He's scheduled to appear in court the day before Thanksgiving. Brennan,
get out of the car.
Who opened Erik Cantu's car door without identifying himself, fired a total of 10 shots, half of them as Cantu drove away. Department officials confirming today the vehicle was not stolen. The October 2nd shooting and subsequent arrest of Brennan on 2 counts of aggravated assault by a public servant, 1 for each person in the car, exposing SAPD to nationwide scrutiny.
Obviously, this person did not exercise good judgment or sound judgment. So, you can't condone that kind of stuff.
Former officer turned criminal justice professor Kevin LaChapelle.
To me, it looked like lack of training, a lack of experience.
Brennan, a 7-month veteran of the agency, had been given the okay to patrol alone just months before the shooting. Chief William McManus this week defended the department's current training standards.
This was a failure for one individual police officer. It had nothing to do with our policies.
Through their attorney, Cantu's family said today the teen is still on life support for his lungs, fighting a high fever while attached to mechanical ventilation.
NSAPD's Public Information Office saying this afternoon the Cantu's vehicle did not belong to the car he was driving, but again, that car was not stolen. No further explanation has been given. If Cantu passes away, that charge against Brennan will be upgraded. His attorney today did not respond to a call asking for an interview. Dylan Collier, KSAT 12 News.
Good information, Dylan. Thank you. Our team has been following this story since it first happened on October 2nd. Right now on KSAT.com, you can find an in-depth article on everything we know about the case, as well as links to past stories. All you have to do is click on the page.
Okay, so y'all just heard that. Y'all just heard that right there. That is crazy. That is wild. And considering that I have done so many videos on my channel talking about how these trigger happy terrorists love to shoot into people's cars at these fast food spots. I remember doing a video and it happened in California. I forgot what city. I want to say San Diego. It was a black man literally sleeping his car in front of a Wendy's. And they came up and they lit his car up. And he pretty much died right there on the scene. And there's several other stories like this. All this kid was doing was eating a burger at McDonald's. They thought that he stole a car. They thought he stole a car. Ran up, y'all saw the video, ran up on him You could see the look on his face. He was like genuinely surprised and scared at the same time with the burger in his hand. Didn't even allow the boy to like explain himself. Like I didn't even hear the boy say anything, and just immediately opened fire and fired on him. He tried to drive away. He got a little bit away, but didn't get very far. And he said he's on life support, for his lungs. So he most likely got a collapsed lung from that. And you heard in the report, they said, if he dies, of course, it's going to be upgraded to a homicide or a murder. But I noticed something that they said about him being about this POS. I can't find this picture, but so be it. That he was a 7-month veteran. Oh, he couldn't wait to use his gun. I'm telling you, a lot of these cops, they get into these positions because they feel like it gives them some level of power, something that they didn't have all along, and they feel like, oh, I have this badge, I have this gun, I have this taser, these handcuffs, maybe some mace, and now I got balls of steel. I can do whatever I want, and no one's going to be able to tell me nothing. And you saw how he just casually walked out of that jail on that bond. I wouldn't be surprised if nothing comes of this. Now, what I find to be very interesting is that this is not a black male that was shot at and is on life support. Is not in their eyes the usual suspect. I don't know how this individual identifies, but I'm looking at his picture. He looks like he could be fall into the Latino category. I don't want to miscategorize, but he looks like he could fall into the Latino category. What I find to be very interesting is that this story is not blown up everywhere. There's a reason why I asked the chat, were you familiar with a person named Erik Cantu? It's a reason why I asked that instead of, did you hear about the story of the 17-year-old boy that was shot at in the parking lot of McDonald's eating a hamburger? Because I knew you would know that. But I specifically asked you, did you know his name, for a reason? And it's a reason why only 2 people out of the over the 200 people in this chat who responded put a 1 and everyone else put a 2. Lamestream media is trying to keep this story as under wraps as they possibly can. Now, we know if this kid was black, they would have probably blew this story up because it gave them a narrative to talk about. By this happening with a person who would be categorized as non-black, now it shifts into a different direction. And Lamestream media, I have a question. Now, I know that this kid would not be classified as PC, but let's hypothetically say that he was. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to do hypothetical. I can actually remember a story where that could have applied. There was a story that came out, I want to say like 2016. And if I have any South Carolina residents in here, y'all probably remember this more than anybody. And back in around 2016, maybe around that range, it could have been there, maybe been a little bit sooner, I'm not sure. There was a white boy, I think right around this kid's age, who got into it, not in a way where he was fighting the police or anything like that. It was something sort of like this, but not at a restaurant or a fast food spot. And he was killed unjustly by these terrorists. And it was a PC terrorist that did it. So that's the white on white crime part right there. But what's interesting is that the cop got off. That cop got off for what he did to this white boy. Now, what I find to be very interesting is that you have PC out here yelling white lives matter. And I'm about to throw the Kunstress into that category. As far as I'm concerned, she is an Oreo colored Karen. uh just yelling that out there. But that story did not make any rounds. As a matter of fact, when I was looking at the comments section for that story, they used the same talking points on him that they did for black people, and that was stop resisting, just comply. I would not be surprised if I looked into some of the comment sections pertaining to this, that some would say the same thing. So my thing is this, the whole point is, how can PC lives don't even matter to them? Why isn't this story everywhere? As a matter of fact, to add more to this, I found out about this story, the one I just told you and referenced, by other black people before Lamestream Media got a hold of it. I first heard about this story on a page ran by a black person on Instagram. When I saw the video on Twitter, it was from a black person who has a Twitter account on a person who has a Twitter account user who is black. What you just heard from this right here was the first time I played it from a Lamestream Media outlet that's owned by PC. So you got to question yourself, do they really care? The answer should be no. I'm guaranteed. Put a one. I got a question for those of you who heard about this story. Put a 1 in the chat if you heard about this from other black people. Put a 2 in the chat if you heard it from another source that wasn't a black person. Because I'm curious. Because I heard about this from, like I said, a black person who, an Instagram account user who was black. I'm seeing a lot of 1s. So y'all see, y'all understand what I'm saying. Even when we hear stories such as these that involves other people at the hands of people like the terrorists that shot this kid, we never hear about it from Lamestream Media. We didn't hear about it on CNN. We didn't hear about it on MSNBC. We definitely didn't hear about it on Fox News, because all of them will try to find an angle. And Child of Light said, I'm the first person that he heard it from. He didn't even hear about this story from anyone else until today from me. So that's why I asked in the chat, do you know who Erik Cantu is or have heard the name? And when y'all said a lot of 2s like I expected, that pretty much confirmed my point. So whenever you be hearing people saying, you know, white lives matter or Asian lives matter, or dare I say Hispanic or Latino lives matter, I'll be sitting there saying, no, they don't. Not because they don't matter or anything like that, but because you don't mean it. You're just saying it because you're trying to push back against something else. Just like when they be saying that blue lives matter, we know what that was up against. Or when they said all lives matter, we know what that was up against. Now, like I said, we all have our issues with the founders and the people running that BLM organization. But let's be real here. When people started saying BLM, all these other little slogans started to pop up right behind it. And we know why that was. And we know they didn't mean it. AB Promotions, and it was mostly black people that were talking about it. Exactly. Nightfall said, I passed by it on another YouTuber's channel. Fly Guy said, I'm the first person they heard about this from. GBS said, we don't hear about the Hispanic community demanding justice for that kid. It's a damn shame. Right. They got to deal with Nuri Martinez and all her crap. That's who they talk. That's who they going after right now. It's her. Emery said Black America was behind the slogan, not the organization. PC knew the org was a fraud too, but they still donated to recoup. They ain't slick. It's funny you say that, because didn't Sharon Osbourne, didn't she come up and try to say that she wanted to get her money back when she found out it was a scam. I almost wanted to do a video on that, but I said, nah, I'm gonna leave that one alone. I'm gonna leave that one alone because after all, this is the same woman that married a man that bit the head off of a bat. You can't get much more weirder and wilder than that.